Hello, everyone. I'm Tiffany Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. I am so excited that you're here with us this evening for Sisters of Wellness. You're not going to be disappointed. Who thinks of when life gives you lemons, you grab the little sucker and show who's boss? Dr. Cynthia Bond Hopson. That's who said that. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I meant that thing too. I tell you, I meant that.
Well, Dr. Hobson in Cordova, Tennessee. She is a best selling author. She's written 7 books. She has worked with historically Black colleges. She is well versed in issues concerning women and uplifting women. She has organized retreats. She is an uplifter of women. Oh my goodness. Thank you for taking times to be with us this evening and to share some nuggets with all of those who will be watching Sisters of Wellness. You know, we started this show because of that scripture in Titus that says older women are to teach the younger women. And I looked at the calendar and I said, I think I'm an older woman.
Well, it's a privilege everybody didn't get though. It's a privilege, and I don't take that lightly. I don't begrudge anybody who gets older. I think it's a real gift from God.
Oh my goodness, it's an incredible gift. I don't
Absolutely.
mind the birthdays coming. That's the only way that means you're still here.
Exactly.
Is the
Exactly.
birthdays are coming. Tell you you have authored 7 books. You've had an incredible career. What's been the highlight for you? She's a Delta Sigma Theta sorority incorporated.
I tell you, Pamela, I have had such a remarkable life. As a matter of fact, I host a podcast that's called Three Stores, Two Cotton Gins, and One Remarkable Life. The journey from there to here. And I've had a remarkable life. I don't think I expected to have such a remarkable one, but I don't know. I was thinking about that today. What has been probably the most important thing? And I would say being married and having children and being able to put things in perspective and figure out what kinds of things are really important. My career has been amazing. Um, I turned 25 years old, gosh, 42 years ago, and made a decision that really changed the whole course of things. I needed a college education. And I went to the careers counselor and she says, well, what are you interested in? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. I just know I'm tired of doing whatever it is I'm doing now. And we decided the journalism was going to be a career that I was going to choose, communications. And I worked at a bank. And one of my customers was the program director at the local radio station. And I said, I want to come to work for you. And he says, have you ever been in a studio? And I thought, what does one thing have to do with the other? And so he said, show up Sunday morning at 6 a.m.
Which radio station was that?
WASL, Dyersburg 100, Dyersburg, Tennessee. And he didn't expect me to show up at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning. I didn't expect me to show up at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning, but I did. And it changed the whole trajectory. And so um, maybe the answer to your question 5 minutes ago is showing up. Absolutely, just
Showing
showing
up.
up. Because if you don't show up, you can't represent, you can't be there, you can't understand, you can't know, you can't learn if you don't show up.
There are a lot of things going on, Dr. Cynthia, um, from the shootings that took place yesterday, um, the confirmation of the first African American woman on the Supreme Court. You blog, I know that you've blogged about that, to Roe v. Wade, the potential overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Wow.
So many things that are happening in the United States of America. Let's first, from a perspective of an African American in the South growing up in rural West Tennessee, um, living in an era when there were Jim Crow laws, or on the edge of those things happening, and then to see the outright open attack on African Americans anywhere, church, grocery store. What have been your thoughts as these things have happened over the last 48 hours?
I've just been incredibly sad. But I refuse to live in fear. And I think that's, I don't know if making people afraid was the goal, but I know so many more people are going to not do things because they're afraid. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't, there's really nowhere you can go that hasn't been attacked.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what started on 9/11 was it's like, oh my God, somebody has come into my home and and been mean and nasty. And the last 2 days just made me incredibly sad because I'm thinking, what about somebody's life is not valuable to you? Why would you let hatred take you over to a point that you would kill people innocently? I mean, okay, if somebody came up and slapped you, not like Will Smith and Chris Rock, but if somebody came up and slapped you and you had a beef with that person, then I understand if you all are going to have a fight. But these are innocent people minding their own business, going about their lives. When they talk about who the people are who died, minding their own business, and then their lives are just snatched away. It's so sad. I'm just
Especially
incredibly sad.
when we have, stay out of bad neighborhoods. Well, I was standing by the eggs in the grocery store.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I, I went to get some cereal for my children. Um, in this country, the United States of America, as there have been all of these efforts to suppress stories, real history about the United States of America, in reality, Black people have been killed like this from day one in the United States of America.
Yep.
Black lives have not mattered,
No.
which I think is why there's been such an effort to embarrass people or dampen saying Black Lives Matter. And if Black Lives Matter, then will there be as much attention on this as we had on 9/11, which was clearly domestic terrorism?
Mm.
And this is no different, but we're still being viewed differently because we are people of color in the United States of America, as if our lives don't matter.
Well, I tell you, when you talk about lives and mattering, it's really important to understand that things have changed. You know, when they say, well, the more things change, the more they say the same. In the 66 years I've been on the earth, I have seen change. I have um, recognized that change takes time. It's a slow process, but it is a process. And I think when I watched Election Day in November 2020, and saw Kamala Harris elected, I was in an interesting place. I couldn't stop crying because I just never thought I would see that happen. And the same thing had happened the year that Barack Obama was elected, because I grew up in an era where there were colored restrooms, and there were things that you couldn't do because you were colored. And then to see how far we've come, I was elated. I just didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime. And then it's like the hatred just kind of started seeping in all around us. And I don't know where racism kind of seemed to be under the surface. Now it's like everywhere. It's like nobody cares that I'm racist, so I can be racist. I can I can say whatever I like to say, and I don't care if it offends you or not. I don't know. Civility, I think, is the thing that is missing these days, in that hatred seems to be growing and civility seems to be dying. And that's a scary place to find ourselves, I think.
In this country that is clearly divided as the United States of America was
Yeah,
divided at the time of the Civil War.
absolutely.
We have seen laws change, but someone has appropriately said legislation does not change the heart of man.
And see, I think that was one of the things that, as there was a whole big movement with the monuments are problematic, but I don't ever remember stopping and thinking, oh, I love that monument, or why is that monument there? It was a non-issue for me, because you can take the monuments down, but if you haven't changed that somebody's heart, that uh, if you haven't changed somebody's heart, I think you've left half the job undone.
And so, what is it that as women, so we have the issue of African Americans being killed in this country as if it's just open season and no place is safe,
Yeah,
grocery store or church. Um, and then you see women's rights being questioned or potentially taken away. And I will just tell you my feeling on that is when I look at women who are protesting the right to have an abortion, I think about all of the other rights that we left on the table, all of the other things that perhaps we as women fell asleep at the wheel. Do you think did you think that we got too comfortable and so here we are today?
we must have, because when the vote came last week with the Senate bill about abortion, and there were women in the Senate who just didn't stand up for the rights of women. I'm thinking, really? Um, my thought about this is that no
Which is
woman,
really contradictory because if people can go and shoot people who have social security numbers, but we're
yeah,
concerned about the fetus, it's really a contradictory message here in this country. We have more guns on the streets in this country than any other civilized nation,
civilized,
and
civilized.
civilized, and yet we're talking about protecting the unborn. Where is the protection for those who are already born?
And therein is the rest of the story. Therein, because some of these same folks who were campaigning for an overturning of Roe are the same people who want you to put somebody in prison and kill them because they believe in capital punishment. I'm missing something here. A life is a life is a life, is it not?
Yeah.
And if you insist that a child be born, you've got to put some programs and services in place to um, help this child grow up, rather than just bring the child in the world, and then you don't want to provide any social services, you don't want to provide health care, you don't want to take care of women and their mental health. And I don't know, it's like we have not thought this all the way through.
Somebody has.
Well, somebody's sleeping and somebody's
Somebody
staying
has.
awake. Somebody's
Right.
staying awake all night, okay?
So
Yeah.
what is it what do you think it's going to take because you work with women across all lines? What do you think it's going to take to motivate women to be as proactive about human rights, women's rights, because we do have the power to change things. I think
Yeah.
women have underestimated their power.
Therein is the problem right there. I think we have a voice and we've not quite figured out what to do with it. We've not quite realized that we are very powerful. We are very powerful. And if women get angry enough, if they get informed enough for them to form coalitions across race lines, across gender lines, hey, the whole world has to do something different. It has to. I just believe that we have we have underestimated how powerful we are. And until we start getting on the phone and talking to the folks who are making the laws that make no sense, and saying, okay, you got to be more interested in what's happening now than getting reelected. We've got to do something different. We've just got to do something different. And I think as soon as we realize, hey, we're really very powerful. Let's use our power. Let's flex our muscles a little bit. I think the whole world is going to hear it. I think it's going to be a shout heard around the world.
Let's,
Absolutely.
I think we just came up with the name of a new group, Flex the Uterus.
I love it. I love it. Um,
Because the uterus is the strongest muscle the human has. Yet we've bought into this notion that we're the weaker vessel
and helpless.
and helpless.
And we
I-
don't have a voice, and our voices are not as strong. Trust me. We have the power, and we have to use it in strategic places and stop wasting our time on things and folks that don't matter. And
Well,
I don't want that to come off wrong, but I'm saying uh, when I get the telemarketers who won't leave me alone, and they call and they want me to give them money to have the politicians do what I've already paid them to do. And I said, you know, the cause is something I firmly believe in, whether it's the firefighters or the whatever. But I don't understand why I have to pay the politicians a salary and then pay them to do their work. I'm missing something here. And so I'm saying, no, I'm not going to give you additional funding for you to influence politicians. I'm going to get on the phone, I'm going to get on the computer, and I'm going to send them messages. I love the fact that when I send letters to my Congress people, whether they agree with me or not, when they reply, that tells me, okay, you heard what I had to say. Because when they say, well, we didn't hear from the constituents and the constituents said this, I'm thinking, that's not what I said.
so we have been given lemons, Dr. Cynthia Bond Hopson.
Well, I tell
We
you,
have been given lemons. And
yeah.
I would like to hear from you how we, as sisters, women of all nationalities, how do we take this lemon and squeeze the little sucker and let the little sucker know who's boss? Your quote.
Exactly. I think we have to join hands. We have to join hands and hearts. I see us fighting among ourselves for petty things, for the crumbs. When in actuality, there's a whole pie right in front of us, but we're fighting over the crumbs. And I think we're going to have to form coalitions. I think we're going to have to decide. Okay, here are four things we've got to focus on. We've got to fix those four things, then we can tackle the next four things. We cannot be all over the place. We've got to focus our energies. We've got to focus our voices on four things, four or five things that have to change, four or five things that have to have some attention right now. And I think women of all ilks, race, color, um, gender, all of those things, I think we're going to have to join hands and come to some conclusions and, hey, make it shake up things, shake up things. One of my favorite quotes is an Asian proverb that says, when we join hands together, when we join hands and rock together, we can make waves. And I think that's the
Mm.
rest of the story right there. I think we're going to have to uh, put our differences aside, because we have more in common than we have that differ. So I think we're going to have to decide, okay, here is something we have to address. And this whole road thing is scary to me. I don't think any woman goes to an abortion clinic because she doesn't have anything else to do with herself.
Nor
It's
did
got it's
nor did she get there by herself. There was a
thank you.
participant
Thank you.
in her
Thank you.
getting there.
I think it's a personal decision. That's something you've got to live with for the rest of your life.
Yes. Yes.
And so for us to get in the way and make that really big decision more complicated than it has to be, that's wrong on any level you look at it. Whether you believe in abortion or whether you don't have the right to decide what I can do with my body, I don't think.
especially since after the child gets here, there's nothing in place to help
Exactly.
make sure that this child is taken care of. It's very
Exactly.
hypocritical, very hypocritical. And as you said, there is a mental health aspect that does not get addressed. 63 million plus abortions in this country so far. And I
Yeah.
would tell you that there's 63 million hurting women.
Yeah.
If they're still alive, there's 63 million
Yeah.
hurting women as a result of making that decision. So
Yeah.
I think that there are people looking at it, as you said, as if it's, you know, do I go to Wendy's or McDonald's?
I just know
It's
that
not that simple.
it's not that simple. And for us to keep putting up obstacles, like I said, to make it much more difficult for somebody who already has to deal with the decision, first off. And then for us to put roadblocks and obstacles in the way of that decision, I just think we've overstepped our bounds. I really do.
But do you
And
think it's because in this decision is just an example of how women have been disrespected in so many other ways? Like going to pay
yes,
you a different amount of money than your male counterpart who's digging the same ditch 6 feet.
yeah, yeah. I
We've
think
accepted that. We still go to work rather than saying, if you're not going to pay me, I'm not showing up. Imagine
exactly,
if every woman walked off their jobs tomorrow.
exactly, exactly.
Now that's making a wave.
Like I said, we have to understand how powerful we are. And when we look at women's work, teachers don't make much money. You cannot explain to me how a woman who teaches children gets paid less than um, one of these high priced coaches.
The
I had to
coach's salary, especially on a collegiate level, probably is more than
listen.
all of the teachers combined.
Listen, when I worked at the University of Memphis, I had to have these long talks with myself because the basketball coach made more in his clothing allowance than I made in my whole salary.
Did
And
his name, last name start with a C?
I'm not going there. I'm just saying. But I'm saying it just made no sense to me when we look at what things are worth. When you look at daycare workers, these are our babies. They don't make much money. But you can go to the Jeff Bezoses of the world and the Elon Musk of the world, and they've just got billion. We're talking billions with a B. There's something wrong with that picture.
Absolutely. There's so many topics that we can talk about, but you mentioned mental health before.
It's really
Currently,
important.
currently in this country, our children are committing suicide at at the highest rate in recorded history. These are babies.
Yeah.
What has happened, and suicide in general is up in this country. We're not talking about that. What do you think has happened with us that we have given up on this journey? Our children have given up. There are adults who are committing suicide. What do you think? And how do we as women help change that? Because I think we're the only ones who can.
I think we're going to have to pay closer attention. When I was growing up, there was always somebody at home. There were very, very few times when I was at home by myself trying to figure out what to do with myself, as a latchkey kid or whatever. I think we're just too busy to notice when somebody is struggling. And we've not come to understand that mental health is as important as physical health is.
Hmm.
And that when somebody is overwhelmed, we basically say, well, in other words, take a nap and get over it. When in actuality, there's a whole lot more going on inside. And we don't always provide a forum for people to share what's going on with them. Um, I do a program in Haywood County during Women's History Month called Phenomenal Women Speak. And the last couple of years, two of the speakers have talked about their mental health. And it's really been very powerful in that they have shared that with a public audience because we don't talk about it either.
Right.
It's not something that we talk about. It's not something that we um, put great store on it. But these two women are very public women, and they talked about why we are going to have to pay more attention to our mental health. And I don't want to say lower the expectations, but for some reason, somebody somewhere told women that if they can't do it all, they can't have it all, they can't be it all, then they're worthless. And that is absolutely not the truth. But I think we have set the bar so high for ourselves that there's really no way we can make it. And so I think we're going to have to, number one, pay attention. We're going to have to slow down so we can pay attention. And I think we're going to have to say that our mental health is something we got to pay attention to and got to put some funding behind and some legislation. Because so many times when there are people who are at a point where they're about to have a break, they can't get the health insurance or the services that they need that could protect them from having that complete breakdown or whatever. And so I think we've got to say our mental health is important and stop making light when people say, well, so and so is having a hard time. Well, why? We
Yeah.
don't ask enough questions. Why? What else can we do to help? If somebody says, well, so and so is depressed. Well, what does she have to be depressed about? She's got this, she's got this, she's got this. Like it's something you either have or you don't. We've not clearly understood mental health either. I think that's one of the problems. And until prominent people keep talking about it, like when Simone Biles said that she needed some away time, everybody was like, oh, oh. And you can see how public people would have those kinds of issues, but people didn't quite understand that either. But there's so much that goes on in your mind, so much.
Right. And the pressure, as you said, that so many people are under today. Um, we've all had the shutdown because of COVID,
Yeah,
and then the concern about family members and loved ones and vaccines and who gets vaccinated and children and vaccinations and whether you do it or you don't and whether or not it's safe, having to make those kinds of decisions, and then not being fully educated on how food plays a part in mental health. It is not just the brain, it's what you put in your body that can
absolutely.
impact your brain. And
Absolutely.
we have zero conversations about that.
We've not said that that's important, I think. Um, we focused on a new pair of shoes, what's fashionable over here, and not pay nearly enough attention to our health, especially our mental health. And I love this Sisters of Wellness. That tells me that somebody is saying, hey, you don't really need to have all the drugs. You need some adjustments to your diet and you need some exercise and you need to pay attention. I've been real clear with my doctors whenever there's something that's not quite right and they said, well, we can give you some medicine. No, you cannot give me more medicine. You can give me some kind of remedy. If diet and exercise probably caused the problem, diet and exercise can probably fix the problem. And so I think we're going to have to take charge of our own lives and say that um, we are what we eat. And we're not going to keep eating all the things that are causing us problems.
You're right. My blood pressure was up a few months ago, and I was talking to somebody, and they said you got to go get some high blood pressure medication and bring that down. And I said, well, medicine didn't make it go up. Let me reverse
Exactly.
what made it go up,
Yeah, exactly.
and the blood pressure is now down.
Exactly.
And I'm not at risk for going to kidney dialysis because it is said that high blood pressure medication will burn up your kidneys. And I don't think they tell people that. And our health is in our hands. It is. Our health is in our hands.
And we need to act like it.
Well,
Yeah, we need to act like
we
it.
we
Sometimes
do
we're just like we're throwing up our hands like, well, I don't know what else to do. Um, think about everything you put in your mouth. I had gone to a National Association of Black Journalists conference one year, and the actor William Guillaume had been there, and he talked about when he was laying in the bed, looking up at the ceiling after he had had a massive stroke, and he realized, how did I get here? And what could I have done differently? And I don't know. I went home and I wrote a column about um, we are exactly what we eat, and we are going to have to make some better and some different kinds of decisions if we expect to live and really live. You know, you can exist and take a whole bunch of medicine and not feel good, but you can also change your diet, drink more water, and get some exercise. There's so many things you can do to help
just
yourself.
walking. And guess what else I've learned? Just lying on your back with your feet elevated 20 minutes is incredible for your body. Did you know that?
Hmm.
It helps with blood circulation, helps drain fluid from your ankles and your feet. It's good for your digestive system. I think sometimes when we hear exercise, we think of Richard Simmons. We got to be, that is good. And
I have
there's
no
nothing,
rhythm. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's okay to do
Oh yeah,
that. But
yeah.
there's some other simple things that we can do. Simply taking a walk, a 15-minute walk,
Oh yeah,
3 to
yeah.
4 times a week.
I can
Doctor,
solve more problems walking 10,000 steps than I ever could just sitting at the house thinking about turning it over and over in my mind. So I love
doc,
walking. And if you have a neighborhood that's safe, I love looking at all the pretty flowers and all that. And if you don't have somewhere pretty to go, I mean, they've got gyms and tracks at almost every high school. I mean, you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money to be beautiful inside and out.
yeah, last night we went out and we watched the moon, the blood moon last night, the
Um,
lunar eclipse. And then being out there with all of the lights off and enjoying, for the first time since I've been here in Florida, enjoying the stars. You know how we used to be able to go outside when we were children and look up at the stars, and I thought, there's so many children in this country who have never seen a star.
yeah. Well, I remember a time growing up when, you know, your parents would say, "Go outside and play." And now that's dangerous to do for a
Yeah,
lot of children. They can't go outside and play, or they can't uh, play until the street lights come on because it's too dangerous. What kind of
right.
world is this?
It's yeah,
What kind
yeah.
of world is
And
this?
so we have them locked up in the house playing video games that promote shooting. Killing people is a form of entertainment. Dr. Cynthia Bond Hopson, you grew up in rural West Tennessee.
Rural West Tennessee, Stanton, Tennessee, 3 stores, 2 cotton gins.
I used to go to Dr. Cannon. Dr. Cannon was my doctor.
Dr. Cannon is from Stanton, 3 stores, 2 cotton gins too. He
He
absolutely
was my
is.
doctor. He
He
was a
was one
wonderful
of the
doctor.
best too. You know, I think
Absolutely.
he had a reputation for being able to look at people and kind of figure out what's going on with them without them saying, "Okay, I think it's this." He could tell you, "I think it's this." He was such a force in our community and such a bright spot.
African American physician back in the day when there were
Yeah.
still some black doctors who didn't have admitting privileges to hospitals. Yeah, yeah. Look, I would love for us to talk more about how we galvanize women with this focus of women, period. And you are in one of the Magnificent Nines. What are those organizations doing? We could talk about that more. What are congregations doing? We could talk about that a long time. Your husband pastors a church. I am so delighted that you have joined us for Sisters of Wellness, and I hope we can do this again.
Well, you know where to find me, so call me and tell me when to show up, and I will. I've just been blessed to find you again. I lost you after you left Jackson 10. I don't know how many stores and cotton gins you all had, but anyway, since you left Jackson, I lost you. And when I found you on LinkedIn, I thought, oh, I know her. Hadn't seen her in a long time, but I'm really happy that you invited me to come, and I'm blessed by being here, and I thank you so very, very much.
Well, we are blessed by having you. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom on Sisters of Wellness tonight. And we're going to put in the links how you can contact Dr. Cynthia Bond Hopson if you have something that you would like her to attend or speak at, or um, you want to get in touch with her directly. You want to order one of her 7 books. We didn't get to talk about the books. You must come back when we only talk about the books.
I love it. There are a whole bunch of stories I can tell you about the books. Of course, of course. DrBondHobson.com. That's where you can find me, though. Follow. I'm going places, so follow me, okay?
She's going places. You've already been a lot of places. All 50 states. You and your husband have visited many countries. You're just full, just so full. And we just thank God for you sharing with us.
Well, I'm thankful to God that you have invited me to be part of this ministry of yours, and I'm delighted to see you smiling and beautiful. And I hope you will call on me again.
I definitely will do that. I will do that.
Well, be blessed and keep
Thank you.
shining.
Thank you. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Sisters of Wellness. We also would like to invite you to be a part of our free Facebook group, Peace and Healing Through Forgiveness. My book, The Art of Forgiveness, will be coming out pretty soon. But in the meantime, we have the group, Peace and Healing Through Forgiveness. It is a free Facebook group where we drop nuggets almost daily. So we hope you will join us for that. In the meantime, I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Make it a fantastic moment.